GM all, welcome. So glad you all chose to be here as part of this first ever HATS Protocol demo day. And we're so excited to share with you for what we see as the future of on-chain organizing, presented by a really diverse set of 9 different organizations that are using HATS in really different ways. So during this showcase, we're going to explore a broad set of applications of HATS Protocol, including Maker Endgame's new governance roles and verified MKR tooling enabled by HATS, ATX DAO's permissionless role advancement system based on community reputation points, Premia's trustless election system using HATS, oSnap, and Snapshot, PublicHAUS's delegated role management and documentation system built with HATS, the Sobol HATS Composer, which is the first AI-enabled HATS tool that uses an LLM to build on-chain organizational structures, including HATS trees and safe multisigs and Moloch v3 contracts. The Autonomous World Machine by Mochi, which is curating decentralized AI datasets using Mochi and HATS and JokeRace and Collabland. Grant Ships, an evolutionary grants game built with HATS designed to optimize capital deployment within the Arbitrum ecosystem. CharacterSheets by RaidGuild, which is an RPG dedicated to chronicling guild member journeys, leveraging HATS to provision game permissions and roles. And then finally, HATS protoDAO's own simplified onboarding and offboarding process via an automated permission management system that spans multiple platforms. So the first half of our time here, the first hour, will cover the first 4 demos that you see here on the screen. And these all highlight a novel mechanism for managing or electing or delegating roles within an organization, with roles being a foundational building block of organizational structure. At the end of the second hour, we'll explore really creative applications of HATS that open up entirely new possibilities for coordinating and organizing online. And at the end of all these demos, we'll have a JokeRace for demo of the day with all HATS community members eligible to vote, all community hat wearers. And the winner is getting bonus HATS reputation points and a special edition IRL HATS hat. So before we dive in, I just want to do a few tips of the cap to those who made this possible. First, this demo day is presented by HATS protoDAO, which is cultivating an ecosystem of hat wearers and builders and contributors and setting the foundations for a DAO that can govern the HATS protocol commons for decades to come. 2 HATS protoDAO stewards have been particularly instrumental in putting this demo day on. Diana Chen of Rehash fame is holding things down behind the scenes as the event producer and has been key to making this live stream happen. And Brennan Mulligan, the DAO program manager for RareDAO, who has been my co-designer and organizer for this event and is holding down the chat as our question curator. And if you haven't heard the recent Rehash podcast episode with Brennan and Diana, I can't recommend it enough. Say listen to it now, but maybe listen to it in 2 hours. Also, I want to give a huge hat tip to all of our presenters. They're each true pioneers in this space who have led the charge in each of these incredibly creative implementations and who we're lucky to learn from today. And then finally, tip of the cap to my HATS Protocol co-founders, Spencer Graham and Nick Naragi, and the rest of the Haberdasher Labs team, Ido, Scott, and Vid. They'll be in the chat, ready to answer any questions and direct you to any resources you need to be able to fork and apply these implementations for your own use cases. So with that, I want to pass it to Nick to give a quick look at some of the key developments of the HATS Protocol stack that have been deployed over the past year and that make these implementations possible. We thought just a little bit of context about how HATS works would be really helpful in illuminating how these demos function under the hood before we dive into the 9 demos. So Nick, over to you.
Thank you so much, David. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for all the hard work that you've put into making this happen. It's truly a dream come true to see all of this come to life. So if you could stop sharing your screen, I'll share mine. All right. Okay. So HATS Protocol. It has been just over a year and a half since we get started on this project, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the milestones along the way. HATS Protocol fundamentally is an open source protocol. Here's their GitHub repo. And we started working on this in approximately April of last year. And for those of you who are just joining for the first time, what are HATS? Well, HATS are roles. HATS are a way for DAOs and other on-chain organizations to kind of tokenize a specific role, a set of responsibilities and authorities, and package that up and give it to specific agents or specific human beings. We call them wearers, that are able to then get their work done. Those authorities might be things like a Discord role or voting weight and Snapshot, a multi-sig signing authority, ability to post on a shared account or shared channel, and also receive compensation and be held accountable by the organization. So hats, roles, they're one-to-one, and we do them as ERC 1155s. To tell you a little bit about our origin story, way back in the end of 2021, we were working as part of RaidGuild to try to figure out a way that people who are coming together to get project work done could be held accountable a whole way through the project. There's a new form of organizing happening at RaidGuild, and you'll see a RaidGuild's presentation a little bit later on today too. And what kept happening is that people would come together and try to do work and be able to generate valuable work in a decentralized way, which is absolutely amazing. But sometimes someone would leave the project. And that was a big problem. How do you actually hold people accountable? And how do you actually give people specific roles and tokenize responsibility? And this project within RaidGuild was kind of what started to pique our interest and ideas. And then on April 7th of last year, Spencer sent me the beginning of this document, and he's like, hey, I've been working on something cool. Let's check it out. And this was the original architecture for the concept of Hats protocol. Before we named it Hats, we were calling it DAO role NFTs, which feels like a far cry away at this point. But you can see that the main concepts here are still the things that are in the protocol today. It's mostly follow the core concepts. There's an owner, we have that as an admin. The conditions in Oracle are now what you see as eligibility and toggle. And there used to be a penalty, but that's been now removed, but created in a more modular way. So the essence of this idea of roles and a primitive that represents it on chain has been coming through now for years. And I think what's important here is also that we've been doing this as a big group of people. This is a picture from DAO Camp, where a bunch of people who I'm sure are here today came together and helped to generate the ideas for what needed to go into DAO roles. And as a community, as co-founders and as a team and as a community, we're really stewarding this core primitive that is foundational to Web3 organizing and the true vision of DAOs. So we take that responsibility really seriously, and we also recognize that we're doing this as a community, which is one of the things that's the most exciting. This is the protocol contract on Ethereum. You can see this across many chains now, but this was launched in April of this year, V1 of Hats protocol. And shortly after a ton of work with our team and some key design help, we ended up launching this app, the V2 of the app, in September of this year. And now what you're able to do is you get the whole stack of the protocol from the contracts to the subgraphs to the modular components like automating granting and revocation. That's all accessible to you directly through the Hats app. And what you're going to see today is a bunch of people who have used various parts of the stack, whether that's the protocol itself, whether that's the app to actually construct their tree and compose all the pieces of modules together, or something that they've used kind of as a custom development work on top of the open source protocol. All these interesting manifestations of this core primitive that we're stewarding. So today is a massive celebration of a whole ecosystem of people who've come together to create this thing that we see as foundational. You can see based on all the presentations that are going to happen that this is already happening in a really decentralized way, and it's emerging into something that is going to be tremendously valuable for the evolution of human organizing across the board. So with that, I'll pass it back to David. I'm so excited that this is happening. It's absolutely a dream come true, and so excited for the demos today. Thank you so much, everyone, for helping make this happen.
All right. So first thing you can do, if you'd like, you can prove that you were here by grabbing the Hats Demo Day POAP. I'll leave that up for just a second. So I shared that the purpose of Hats protoDAO is, number one, is two-part purpose. Number one, create and steward the best possible organizational primitive for roles. But second, to explore and curate the vast design space of how to actually use the protocol to solve real problems. So this latter aspect of the purpose, exploring and curating this vast design space for how to use the protocol, is why we're here today, and it's why this demo day came to be. So to prove you're here, you can clone this POAP. As you watch these demos, please do ask questions in the chat in HypeShot and share thoughts and reactions as we go. We are going to have a bit of Q&A after each demo, and we'll draw from the questions you drop in the chat. So ask your questions there. You can also, in the HypeShot chat, see badges for HATS community members and HATS stewards. You are welcome to join the community at community.hatsprotocol.xyz, and applications for HATS stewards for Season 2 are open now. We have a full schedule today, so at the 5-minute mark of each demo, we'll be giving a little chime sound to signal that it's time to wrap, and then we'll follow with a question or two from the audience. And if you're watching the live stream on Twitter, you can join the chat at hatsprotocol.xyz/live. So with that, let's get into it. The first one is Retro with MakerDAO, showing off Maker Endgame's new governance roles and verified MKR tooling enabled by HATS. Retro, I'll stop my screen share and you can take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Let me get that button pushed. But while I'm doing that too, I just want to do a quick shout out to the HATS team. They've been super helpful for allowing us to develop our own internal understanding of what we're trying to accomplish from like a technical perspective. So merging the theory of Endgame to the operations and implementation. So just thank you, Nick, David, and Spencer for all the time that you spent with us. But without further ado, yeah, I'm Retro, one of the ecosystem facilitators here from Maker implementing Endgame. And we used HATS to experiment with ABC tooling. ABC is like a special delegate class, but for the purpose of this demo and explanation, really just wanted to focus on the vision of what we're trying to create with governance, which is Lego governance, like building modules, programmable rules, something that's hyper resilient, but also transparent. So there's confidence and accountability within the system. HATS seemed like a perfect use case for that, especially when you appreciate our current reality is more Web 2 based tooling. So your typical discourse forum, Git books, dressed up MIP portal. We did have a custom voting portal for the actual operations of governance, but it just wasn't showing the same roles, permissions, and the data we needed for the new like AVC class within Maker. Working with a trusted partner like HATS, we were able to really lean on their expertise with building something that was more in line of what the future state of Maker needed. Some of the key high points, which are just presented clearly on their website, are the use of elected roles, controlling multi-sigs and signers for different wallets, as well as establishing permissions and contribution levels. And what we've put together for our demo is kind of like a custom logic tree. This shows more detail than the current implementation, but what we were able to produce then was really like a primitive, a new primitive or a new tool using the eligibility module that established eligibility requirements for the AVC class, but then we're also able to bundle it into the operations of the rule set. So once you pass the primitive check of verifying you have MKR, then the tool can actually update some of our old systems and becomes the source of truth that's pushing the process forward instead of the source of truth that has like a central admin. So getting into the demo then real quick, what we have here is just a simple contract that's called the MKR verifier. This is our custom eligibility module that was created where members can come in and self-register some MKR or have a governance facilitator register on their behalf, allowing someone with the admin hat over AVCs to facilitate and provide customer service for the organization, which is something that we haven't had this formally before. now we don't have a fancy UI for it, but that's something that our teams can help build as well. But once we do have that, once we do have a fancy UI for that, what we're able to do is serve up data into this new custom dashboard, which for the first time shows this primitive concept of verified MKR alongside the typical representation of a maker within your wallet. So for here, compared to a Git book, which just has a table that can't sum information, we now have queryable information associated with timestamps, wallet addresses, signatures, and yeah, we're super excited to see where we can take this in terms of impact within the organization. So now that Hats allowed MakerDAO to accomplish a primitive that has been a challenge for about over a year, we're trying to get into tooling that hopefully becomes everyday impact and use throughout not just the ABC class of the organization, but for the entire organization and ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you, Retro. Maybe as a question, can you share a little bit how you see this unfolding, other use cases of hats that you've explored or might want to explore in the future?
Yeah, so really glad you asked that. The hats perspective that we took to was to establish a primitive with this tool. So instead of just coming in and trying to have something that was, useful for one use case, establishing the verified MKR as a primitive, which I should probably explain a little bit better. It's basically just a snapshot of how much MKR you're holding at one point in time. And there's some different game theory that can go into how much you verify. You don't have to verify your full balance. But with that, there's some different endgame games that could be played with it. So ABCs themselves could do snapshot-based voting. Today, right now, we're simply asking members to go to the discourse forum to post yay or nay, which again is a Web2 solution, email verification, tons of different concerns associated with that. But we can quickly mature not just the verification of MKR, but the use of that metric within the system with hats and some additional custom features. But again, there's the next step for the dashboard then of showing the information that the tool enables, which would be driving other processes associated with it. So that would be actually using this tool for compensation instead of how it's calculated today, which is spreadsheets, more or less. There's also the ability then to enable programmatic member acceptance. So instead of having membership requiring a vote within an AVC, we can pre-program it and say, if you meet these eligibility requirements by updating the eligibility smart contract module, then AVCs are able to create a more welcoming and permissionless experience to come in, but permissionless with boundaries. And then last but not least, too, anytime we're able to get data more real time, I think it's better for a decentralized organization. So instead of somewhere between like a 24-hour to 48-hour delay of seeing AVC members be accepted just due to the logistics of different time zones and people having to go to the forum to manually accept things, we can create an automated system where those manual intervention points are more of oversight rather than an actual function that the system depends on.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, everybody in the chat, give Retro and Maker some love. Share a reflection you're having. It's something that's coming up for you. Actually, I'd love for you to share something that you found most interesting or inspiring about this demo. Share that in the chat. Give them some love. I think we have the reaction buttons currently not working. We'll try to refresh, but the GIFs are working, the chat's working. So give some love. What's something you found most interesting or inspiring about this demo? Thank you, Retro. You can sign off. We're going to get in Premia next. We'll transition here. All right, next up, we got ATX. All right, welcome to Jacob from ATX DAO. I'm going to be sharing ATX DAO's permissionless role advancement based on community reputation. Remember to ask questions in the chat, and we'll bring them into the Q&A. Give them some love. Jacob, you're muted. Come
on. There we go. Hello, you guys are able to hear me? sharing my entire screen. Is it also able to turn on camera, or should that just stay off?
Yep.
Looks like it's disabled for me. That's fine. Okay. Hello, guys. Jacob Homanix from ATX DAO. Of course, thank yous to the entire Hats Protocol team for putting this on. I'm just going to dig right into it as we've got pretty limited time. Okay, so again, I'm from ATX DAO. We are a Austin, Texas-based DAO, just pushing the city of Austin forward in pretty much any way we can imagine with Web3. So, of course, we do innovative technologies as well. Of course, doing integrating Hats Protocol into the ecosystem. So recently we got a grant to build out a reputation and roles system, which will include our custom reputation tokens. And then built on top of that is the Hats protocol to grant authorities and responsibilities in a decentralized and permissionless way. And so let's take a look at what that looks like. So here, starting off, I have my classic Hats tree. This is a very simplified Hats tree, specifically for this demo. Our actual implementation, and yours as well, may be a lot more complex, more akin to what Nick showed earlier. Okay, so let's take a look at our hats. We got the one hat to rule them all. This is the hat that is most likely owned by the DAO itself. Yep, it's just kind of there as the main admin. And then we have the Mad Hatter, which is the Hatter hat. Important thing there is it allows users to claim hats without administrators getting involved. And then the most important one here is the Hat of Opportunity. So we can see here it has specific authorities, the Charmverse editor. So with this hat, if you're wearing it, you're able to enter a token-gated Charmverse document and have the ability to edit it. So looking at our eligibility module, it looks at 1155 tokens. That's what ATX DAO's reputation tokens are built upon. So this eligibility module is simply looking for an amount of 1155 tokens on a specific smart contract. And that's it for the hats tree. Let's dig into the reputation and roles portal. I'll post links after my session, but if you follow this link here, you are able to play along and go through this entire process yourself. So here on the landing page, we can see our reputation tokens. They're currently 0. So let's go ahead and grab some. We got some flavor text. And so we've done an important contribution for the DAO, and we should get some tokens for it. So let's go ahead and claim some tokens. So in this example, it's a bit fantasy driven, but in actuality, let's say I merge a pull request or I hosted an event for the DAO. It's up to the DAO's responsibility to how they want to distribute the reputation tokens. Again, in this case, I'm just using a smart contract, which, as you can see, please check back later and to redeem more tokens. It's a smart contract that every hour or so, a wallet is able to claim tokens. So there's many possibilities there. So let's go over to the My Hats section. Since if we go home real quick, we can see we have 100 reputation tokens now. So we can look at our full collection here. We can see these 2 administrator hats are grayed out, of course, because those are owned by the DAO itself. But I have a claim button under my Hat of Opportunity. And we can see here in the tooltip, it says requires 100 reputation tokens. And we saw a second ago, I have that. So let's go ahead and claim this hat. And give it a second. So an important thing here is, again, please feel free to go to this link and test this out yourself. It is live right now. More importantly, there's also a GitHub repository where we're attempting to make this entire code process completely open source, forkable, usable by anyone, any DAO, and as customizable as possible. So yeah, we can see the transaction went through. I have my hat of opportunity. So let's head over to the Charmverse document. So I created a Charmverse space called the Timeless Tavern, which place to share stories. So let me go to this page here, the Board of Journeys, where wearers of the Hat of Opportunity are able to share their journeys. So as you can see right now, I don't have edit access. So what I'm going to do is sign in, connect my wallet. And for those aware of, okay, so let's take a look. I need to search for an existing space, the Timeless Tavern. And we can see here the token check. It checks to see if I have at least one of HAT's protocol smart contract address and the HAT ID for the Hat of Opportunity. And so I have that check mark. I successfully get the role Adventurer. We're going to skip past this.
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Maybe share a little bit of where you see this going and other hats that you might be creating associated with different contribution levels.
Yes. So with ATX DAO, we have, as I mentioned, a bit more complex of a system. I think the beginning level hat is just called the member hat. That may give you access to Discord channels or, again, specific Charmverse documents. Maybe that's read only, and maybe some have write access. Going a level above, we have guild leaders. We have, so at ATX DAO, we have several guilds, like Innovative Guild, Marketing Guild, Design Guild. And that may give you specific access to stuff like GitHub repos, Twitter passwords, specific Google documents, and much, much more. Level above that. So let's say each hat requires a higher amount of reputation tokens. So the lowest level may require 10 rep tokens, and only increases as you go upward. So to get the GitHub repository may require 1,000 reputation tokens, while updating the Charmverse document may require 100. And then the next one above that is the Steward hat, which allows you multi-sig signer access. That's the main one there. We have a whole document fleshed out explaining all of that, so I'm glad to share that as well. Got a question in the chat. How many people in Austin are involved in ATX DAO? At the moment, we have about 250 members. Okay.
Gonna move on to Premia now. If you could stop your screen share. Everybody in the chat, give ATX DAO some love. Share something that you found interesting or exciting or inspiring about that demo. We're gonna bring on DK who is going to be sharing Premia's trustless elected roles mechanism using hats and oSnap and Snapshot. DK, if you're ready, I'll stop my screen and you can take it from here.
GM. What's going on?
GM.
Let's get into it. All right. You guys can see fine, right? You can never tell.
Yep, we got it.
Cool. Awesome. So, my name's DK. I am one of the contributors over at Premia. I've been with Premia since the beginning. Premia is a DeFi options platform. And I'm going to take you guys through our governance history so we can show you then where we're going and how we're going to be utilizing hats in the future. So, quick overview on this screen. We launched in February of 2021. At that point, we also had our token generation event. Contracts all owned by multisig. This is before multi-chain. We started liquidity mining. And then we still use Snapshot. And we started using Snapshot back then to any builder supported initiative, right? So if someone wanted to come in with something funny, any builder supported initiative on Snapshot, we would go and get its essentially blessing and ratification through the Snapshot process. In 2021, we upgraded our platform to like a V2. It was a different kind of product model. Contract still owned by multisig. We introduced our first level of on-chain governance in the form of a voting escrow model. And the voting escrow model kind of controls the emissions within that liquidity mining system now. And that's real time. It updates on next block. And we, at that point in time, we needed a multi-chain solution, right? Because we were on 4 different side chains or L2s. We also needed an omni-chain solution, right? And the best for omni-chain solution back in last year, for the most part, was again snapshot strategies for each one of those chains. And then moving into 2023, we started with this new process where we wanted to iterate on governance and product updates and bring in some members of the community closer to the building group, right? So we started this parliament structure or mechanism. It's an elected role. There's 10 of them. We meet with them every week. They have access to test all of our products. We do prioritization calls with them. They're very much ingrained in how we do our day-to-day and build cycles now. We still have the on-chain gauge weight voting, but what we want to do is we want to introduce, for the parliament members, now have more control into the fundamental mechanism design, contract upgrades. And so how do we get there in a way that we can move slowly by introducing, essentially a dual form of protocol upgrades? We still have the builders. Now we have this parliament with the main goal to being, if the builders disappeared, right? If the multi-sig members disappeared today or tomorrow, can the protocol continue to operate? And how can we build this in a way where we can continue to expand upon the role that both parliament has and then ultimately token holders? So taking a quick look right here, the voting escrow model, this is our VX Premia. As you stake Premia, it gives you a bunch of different advantages in our protocol. But here's the meat and potatoes, right? So here's our hat tree. It's a very simple hat tree, as you can see. We have a few different modules that we're using, right? We're using the UMA oSnap module, and we're using the snapshot. So the way that it works is you can vote on a snapshot. You attach a actual transaction to that snapshot. If it gets approved, it will then be picked up by the Oracle, and then it will be issued. That transaction that was voted on snapshot will then be issued through a multisig, right? And so we still have the multisigs as the owners of all of our smart contracts, the different treasury accounts, the time lock. And so how can we bring a mechanism in here in which we love snapshot? It's fit for function. Let's build something that plays into the snapshot roles and the multisig roles until we can, because if we're going to do a fundamental token redesign next year or in the year next, we need to spend a lot of time thinking about that. But how can we get more control into the parliament's hands today in the event that the builder multisig disappears? And the best way that we thought about doing that was using hats. We have an election process. Post the election process, the safe will then, is the top hat, will then mint those hats to the parliament members. The parliament members then have a subspace in which, by wearing a hat, they can vote. And so it's a downstream effect, right? So we have 2 different implementations of the safe in the UMA Oracle. So ultimately, token holders can come in, vote for a parliament. That parliament will then will be the voting members on this new snapshot subspace, in which that they can put any transaction. They go straight to protocol update. Anything that the core multisig can control today, they can control in this implementation. We've done all the testing. Our next election is the end of January, and this is how we're going to be moving forward. Any questions thus far?
Yeah, maybe just tell us a little bit more about how you see this evolving, following the election in January.
Yeah, so the first, we in 2023, we did kind of a tokenomics discussion. We came to some compromises. The way that we do governance is we don't like to put up anything in the governance arena that is contested, right? We do a lot of compromising. We do a lot of negotiation. We do a lot of discussion. We then come to an agreement as a group that everyone can live with. And then once we've reached that, we will then move it forward. So sometimes people poke at us because our voting for ratios are way higher than our against ratios. That's because we spend a significant amount of time before that. So the first step being Parliament now has on-chain mechanisms in which they can take control of the protocol if they want to. All right. Obviously, there's going to be guardrails. We move slow in the governance arena. There's also some stuff that we want to do in terms of being a native token issuer in 2023, right? And so does that mean we use something like CCIP or CTTP? We don't want to use the solution that we used in the past, which kind of led us into some issues, especially with the multi-chain, like the multi-chain hack with Phantom, right? So now we have, a small amount of our tokens that are sitting in this account that we don't have access to, right? So how can we build a more robust system in the future? And how can we play into, these are the different mechanisms that our users understand, instead of trying to build something from the ground up. Let's utilize the rails of what they like, and then fit our governance to, in the meantime, at least fit our governance into this flow. And so immediately, they don't have access to the multi-sig that can update any of those contracts. However, the snapshot will allow them to do that. There might be a case in which that we might want to add them as multi-sig signers, in which that's probably going to be the next component that we add within hats. And then from then on, I depend on the Parliament to kind of decide where to take us, right? So that we're giving them the keys to the castle, and excited to see how they're going to use it. The Hats guys have interacted with some of our Parliament members quite significantly in the last few months, but it's been fun. And this is the only solution that works for what we wanted. So we're happy to be working with Hats.
Nice. Thank you, man. One more question for you. How hard was it to code and link snapshot voting to Hats? What was that process like?
Well, I'll give you, I am not a super technical person myself. However, some of our Parliament members are less of a technical skill set than myself. So I would say that overall, the Hats interfaces are awesome. Like, you guys have thought through how to amend and add on and delete from a hat tree. Everything I need in the Hats interface is there. From the actual setting up the flows and the testing and getting it working with UMA Oracle on a test net, there was a little bit of solidity that I had to look at. But overall, I would say the process was maybe me focusing on it for 2 weeks, whereas the member from the Parliament that was working on it got us 90% of the way there, right? There was one small thing that I had to come into, but from being a super non-technical person, he got us 90% of the way there. And I'm sure with a little bit of added help elsewhere, or maybe one of our engineers coming in, we could have got all the way there without my help. But nonetheless, I'm here, and we got it done in less than 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thanks so much, chat. Give him some love. What'd you find interesting or exciting about this demo? Share some love in the chat. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Premia. You can sign off. We're going to transition. All right. Next up, we got one of the co-founders of Hats Protocol lead and technical lead himself, Spencer Graham. He's going to give a look at how Hats protoDAO is using Hats dog fooding. And Hats protoDAO is a protoDAO, pre-DAO, practice DAO that is setting the foundations for a DAO that can govern the Hats protocol commons for decades to come. Spencer, I'll stop sharing my screen here and pass it to you.
This is so exciting. Got to figure out my screen share here. I think this is the one I want. Okay, if you can see that. Okay, excellent. All right, well, hello, everybody. It's amazing to have all of you here. This is really, like I said, really exciting. I'm Spencer, for those who don't know me, one of the co-founders of Hats Protocol and the technology lead on the Hats team. So Hats protoDAO. Within the protoDAO, we are using Hats ourselves for quite a large number of things. What I'm going to focus on today, though, is how we're using Hats to simplify the onboarding experience for our community, and also to collectively manage the responsibilities and permissions for the community members and contributors and stewards within the Hats ecosystem. So obviously, we are dog fooding quite a lot. We're testing out things. We're pushing the limit. But we have really found that using hats, and especially in this particular case, has made our lives much easier as coordinators and co-collaborators in this evolving and growing ecosystem. So like David said, the Hats protoDAO exists for like two primary reasons, or has two primary goals. And so the first goal is to create and steward the best possible organizational primitive for roles, which we see as Hats protocol. And secondly, to explore and curate the vast design space of how to actually use the protocol to solve real problems. So I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of that today. And the things I'm going to focus on today are a hat claiming mini app, which you can see up on screen right now, that we built to simplify the onboarding experience, and kind of it ties together a lot of the pieces, the modular pieces that Hats protocol that exist at the contract layer, ties them together for a nice user experience. And as part of this, I'll also give like a very, very quick tour of the Hats protoDAO tree that you can see on our Hats app on your own time later too. Okay, so here I am in the community claiming or agreement signing app. This is a mini app that we built. This is the first thing you'll see when you start to join the community. And this is an agreement that we've developed. You can read this on your own time. But what's really special here, one of the key ideas, is that you can only claim the hat. You can only become an official member of the Hats community, of which there are currently 172 people. Many of you are included in that. You can only have this hat. You only wear it if you have signed this agreement. So what this app does is that allows you to, well, one, read the agreement, but then two, sign and claim it at the same time. So this is going to be an on-chain transaction that creates a signature for you of this, or by you of this agreement, and then automatically mints this hat to you. So it allows you to claim it. And we can extend this key idea in a number of ways. So we could add a criterion here in addition to needing to sign the agreement, that you maybe need to have a Gitcoin passport score over a particular threshold, or maybe a Bright ID score. And that might help us with some, that might provide some anti-Sobol protection. Or really any other criteria you could think of. So once you claim your hat, then you'll have this hat and you'll kind of be in the Hats tree. You'll be in the Hats community. And that will give you access to, actually going to go back here to the second one.
That's good, thanks.
Okay. So once you've got your hat, once you've joined the community officially, that'll open up access to a number of different tools and platforms that we use to share information, participate in governance, and organize the community. So that includes the chat, our Telegram channel, which is gated via Collabland. Also, it includes our Charmverse page and wiki, which is also gated. We have a number of forums that we've published through dForum that are gated as well. Joke races that we've been running, and snapshot strategies and snapshot polls that we run from time to time. So only if you have the hat can you participate in all of those. But once you have the hat also and are seeing all this information, you can start to make contributions to the protoDAO. And if you do, you can, I'm going to switch up this view here. You can start to receive proto-rep. So proto-rep is reputation points within the Hats protocol ecosystem, within the protoDAO. And under the hood, those are non-transferable loot shares in the protoDAO itself. And that's a Moloch DAO that's wearing the protoDAO hat. And those are loot shares, so they're non-transferable on-chain points, reputation points. You can think about them. Over time, as you start to accumulate more proto-rep and make more contributions, you can move from being just a community member to also being an active contributor, and eventually to being a Hats steward. So each of these levels, we can think of that almost akin to contribution zones. They provide or give you access to additional permissions, also additional responsibilities inside of the ecosystem. And that includes editing Charmverse wiki pages or getting additional roles within the protoDAO, like the ability to curate our hats modules registry. There's one really important thing that the steward hat gives you access to, gives you permission for, which is particularly special within the protoDAO. And that is that it automatically, once you have the steward hat, automatically converts your proto rec to proto votes, which goes from loot to full voting shares in the hat's protoDAO Moloch DAO. So that basically, once you become a steward, then you can have real governance power within the protoDAO. You can create, vote on, and execute proposals within the protoDAO. So there's lots of ways that we're experimenting with hats ourselves. But what's most beautiful is that we're learning a ton from all of the organizations here, from the rest of our community, wearers, builders, other contributors. And that's exactly what we're hoping to see as one of the goals of the protoDAO, to explore and curate the vast design space that the protocol creates. So this is an invitation to you to join us. If you haven't already, go claim your community hat. We'll pop a link in the chat and join the Telegram group. We've got monthly town halls, technical deep dives, regular joke race contests, and other polls, other ways to share your perspective, and a lot of stuff planned for 2024. So really excited for you to join us on this journey and get involved in hats.
Thank you, Spencer. You can stop your screen share, and we are going to roll straight into PublicHAUS, which you are going to be introducing. So please introduce PublicHAUS. Deacon is joining the stream. Go for it.
Amazing. So this next demo, PublicHAUS, DAO House, this is an organization that is really near and dear to my heart. I spent 2+ amazing years as a core contributor to DAO House, and so much of what has turned into what Hats Protocol is today comes, at least from my perspective, in large part from a lot of the challenges and opportunities that we were seeing and facing within DAO House. So it's a great honor for me to introduce Deacon to present the PublicHAUS Hats tree. PublicHAUS is the governing body of DAO House, and Deacon is the perfect person to share it with us. He's a legend in the space and a true champion for decentralization and experimentation. So without further ado, please take it away, Deacon.
Thanks. Thanks. That's awesome. Yeah. Also, I'm really excited to see the progress and success you guys have had with hats, and it's really cool to be using it in PublicHAUS now. I'm going to try to share my screen. Can you guys see?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So we have a pretty simple one here, and most of the action is happening on this side. We're using a couple kind of cool mechanics that were enabled by hats. PublicHAUS is kind of the governing body of DAO House, where we have a protocol, we have tons of contracts we're managing, several treasuries, like an ecosystem fund and the developer funds. And so the way that we're set up in our DAO is we have the shares, which are kind of executing voting body, and our loot, which is the more general community that can signal and help inform the executing shareholders. The shareholders we call champions, and they're kind of elected in through working and through a proposal. So what we're using for the champion hat is the ERC20 eligibility module. We have so anyone who's holding shares can come in and claim a champion hat. Besides that, next to this, we have several roles that have been important. We have 2 safe signer gates, so safes that are controlled by the people who wear the hats. The top hat, which will be owned by the DAO. Right now it's owned by me, so I can make quick updates and get enough visibility to the community to know how this stuff's working. But there already is this contractor's hat, which is a safe that controls many of our contracts and on our headquarters, which is Optimism. And another one, which is called our Elected Rewards Committee, which is through our seasonal kind of iterations of goals and objectives. We do a retroactive at the end, and there's a lot of nuance in those transactions. So we have a safe that can manage those funds seasonally. you can see we have like eligibility and toggle on a lot of these so that the top hat can come in and control them. Then we have two kind of other ones, XComs and core maintainer, which are XComs is kind of third-party communications, things like on Twitter or blog posts. And core maintainer is the third-party code repository, which are the admins on our repo. The thing I really love about hats right now is it's just kind of a way to self-document things. We had all these different contracts and roles and people and different places being stored. It's awesome to get it all in one place that anyone can come look at. Under this OP assets, this is actually the safes. These are our safe addresses. And then we have a whole section over here, which is our cross-chain assets. And this shows all the different chains that we have contracts deployed on, who's controlling it, and like what safe is managing it, and if it's a DAO or if it's a safe with signers, and really using it for that documentation purposes. So that's the main setup there that we've got, and it's been really cool to work with. I'm excited to get this transferred over to the DAO and to start experimenting. One of the really cool things about this, with it being on chain, with the shares and loot and the MakerDAO all on chain, we can really start doing some cool combinations and mature into even more excellentness.
All right. Thank you, Deacon.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. You can stop your screen share. And we are just about at the hour mark. So I'm going to reset context just a little bit in case there are new people joining us. Welcome. Welcome to the first ever Hats Demo Day. We have started to cultivate Hats protoDAO. This is the end of the first season. And so this demo day is sharing some of the most creative and interesting implementations to date. And one of the purposes of Hats protoDAO is to explore and curate this vast design space of how to use the protocol to solve real problems. So that's why we're here. And next up, as you watch these demos, please do ask questions in the chat, share thoughts and reactions as we go. We are going to roll to the end of this hour, and if you're watching on Twitter, you can join in the chat at live.hatsprotocol.xyz. Next up, we're going to get B. Peets from Sobol in here to share Sobol's Hats Composer, the first AI-enabled Hats tool that uses an LLM to build on-chain org structures. I think you're going to love this. B. Peets, over to you.
Hello, hello. All right, well, I'm going to get this screen fired up. All right, so one of the co-founders at Team Sobol, and Sobol was working on mapping DAOs, make it easier to visualize when DAOs scale up, what's going on, because there's a lot of teams, guilds, projects, and a lot of different roles, as well as a lot of tokens flying around. So this is a view into Bankless DAO in our app, and our famous sort of circle plot allows you to zoom in and start to see groups like, say, in this case, Bankless Consulting, and the people who are filling various roles. We also map out Treasury and give a sort of real-time update of all the different safes that are in play. Now, these role tags are coming from Discord. So, boo, Discord as a source of truth. So that's why I'm here today, is when we saw Hats come along, Sobol really wanted to play. And Hats is so open, it makes it easy to play. So we wanted to make it easier for all of you all to play with Hats. And so we created the Hats Composer. And really what we're trying to do with the Hats Composer is show how interesting and easy it is to weave and compose various smart contracts together. So I'm going to create a new workspace with a new top hat while we're on the call. And recently what we've done with our composer is we've fired up an LLM that will help us do quick little compositions off-chain with the Hats protocol and discover how to use Hats protocol and some of the other things that we can weave with it. So here, I'm going to create a sample Hats tree with 2 teams below the top hat, 3 roles in the Hats underneath those teams. And I want to use Street Fighter game to generate placeholder names so I can just start to play with this. So what's happening in the background here is we've got a LangChain backend. And so that UI input has come through to our RESTful API. We have an OpenAI function agent in addition to a JSON Composer LLM that's a little more bespoke and actually understands how to work with HATS protocol, Gnosis Safe, and Moloch contracts. In addition, we want this LLM to be capable of answering questions. So we have a document loader into a vector DB, as well as a web search via the SERP API function. And so you can ask it questions like, is a 3 of 3 multisig a good idea or not, and get an answer. All of this is plugged into GPT-4 via the OpenAI API. So that's actually the slow part. So boo, not so open AI. And so in the background, this has been going forward. It's going to tell me what it wants to do. It'll ask me if that's correct. I'll say yes, and it'll start to generate the JSON using that LLM that I've described. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to come out and show you what that would generate. So this is the Street Fighter top hat that was generated, as well as the World Warriors team and the Shadaloo team, the 2 teams I requested, as well as 3 sample hats underneath. So these are the roles of Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, and Bison, Zangief, and Guile. I've gone ahead and started to show the power of our composer where we can start to play with other things too. So let's say this top hat, we want it to actually be worn by a Moloch contract. So I'll create that in situ, and we can start to fill out the parameters for that. And it's also showing the draft safe for the Moloch v3 that's going to sit underneath and wear the hat. And so effectively get Moloch-based control in situ. I could also add a safe for the Shadaloo team and say, hey, yeah, let's create a safe for this team and fill out the parameters. Eventually, once this is all done, so whether you're doing an LLM-based composition or those manual edits in the interface to compose together your HATS protocol tree and smart contracts, you can deploy, and we can take this thing on chain. And so it'll sequence the deploy in a gas efficient manner. And if I click the deploy button, it's going to start to open up my wallet for signing. And we'll also do some error handling. So what's actually happening is when we get to that step to try and deploy the Moloch contract, it's actually going to tell me, no, hey, I can't deploy. You've got 8 warnings. And will have me come in here and fill in the parameters to make sure I have a well-formed Moloch contract before I'm deploying it on chain. So that's a fun way to start to play the HATS Composer. You can save your compositions to IPFS, revert changes, as well as grab a share link, which I'll grab for you now, and I'll put it into the chat after the demo's done so that you can come in here and see this one too. All right.
Getting a lot of love in the chat for good reason. I think this is so sick. Pete, can you share a little bit more of how you're thinking of evolving this over time? What Sobol is aiming to do, long-term vision.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I mentioned was that we're not very happy with OpenAI. And so we're looking at self-hosted open source models that are tuned to be a little more purpose-built for this, and so that we can get faster and snappier stuff. So we've got some tests going. The other is we've been looking at adding the HATS SDK for modules, so that as modules come online in the HATS SDK, you can start to click that plus button in our composer, and you'll be able to see all the different Hatter solutions and other modules that you can compose on the canvas. And the third is to start to add some other smart contracts to the composition that DAOs might want to play with. So we'd love advice in the chat of what you'd like to add. One of the ones I'm kind of a fan of is I'd like to start to see 0x splits being played with a little bit more, but you tell me what kind of open contracts we should be adding to the composer that you want to compose in with the other ingredients we've already got going.
I love it. Make sure to share the link to the HATS Composer in the chat. People are stoked to check that out. Thank you, B-Pete's. We'll let you go and transition to the next one.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we're going to go to Mochi, presents the Autonomous World Machine, which is curating decentralized AI datasets using Mochi and HATS, and JokeRace, and CollabLand. Mochi Gabriel has joined the stream. I'm going to stop my screen share and pass it over to you.
All right, sweet. Good morning, everybody. My name's Gabriel. Thanks for having me. I'm the founder of Mochi. Today we'll be presenting something called the Autonomous World Machine. So as the name suggests, the Autonomous World Machine is an on-chain memetic device whose purpose is to spawn autonomous worlds. We put the machine into practice at the end of this summer and used it in the following 2 months to generate over 4,333 unique images using Stable Diffusion, and created 5,500 posts across Lens, Farcaster, Blue Sky, Threads, and X. And I'm going to show you how we did that. But importantly, afterwards, we used JokeRace, CollabLand, and the one and only HATS protocol to create a decentralized system for curating, labeling, and managing image data, which we use to fine-tune our community AI image model. Our short-term goal is to create and steward a decentralized community intelligence, otherwise known as a squad god, the creator of our autonomous world. So here's how the system works. So first we kick off a 4-week Mochi journey in our Train to Learn Discord. I can explain that at a different time how Mochi works. But basically your goal is to generate 1 image a day, submit it to Mochi, and post it to on-chain social. You earn an OP reward for every submission to our shared database, and this is what a feed looks like inside of our Discord. So this is every single post that happened over that 4-week journey. And just to show you what a post looks like, I'm going to go ahead and open up, this is Lenster, or Hey, formerly Lenster. So this is an example of something, an image that was generated by one of the players, and then the prompt basically that they use to generate it on Stable Diffusion. If you're to search Train to Learn on Farcaster, hashtag Train to Learn, you can see a log basically of every single post that people made while they were creating using Stable Diffusion. So at the end of the journey, we vote on the top image that was submitted using a JokeRace. Hopefully some of you are familiar with on-chain contests. These are all the images that were generated and submitted basically for voting. And you basically earn Mochi tokens for submitting your images daily. And you use those tokens to vote on the top image. This was the top image that was voted, some cute little salamanders near the base of a mountain. And so we named the image model that we generated 0x Salamander. It's the first version of our image generation model. What happens after you win this contest at the end of the 2-week period is it unlocks your hat, basically in our hat hierarchy. This is Carolina, our curator kind of model and mascot. So basically at the end of the 2-week voting period, at the end of the journey, you unlock a hat using this module. And as you can see, the contest addressed here is basically linked to the winner of the JokeRace. So you're able to claim the hat here on the HATS protocol website. And then what that does is it unlocks a role inside of this Discord that opens a curation channel for the number one person who created that image, where they get access to kind of early versions of our models and get to help curate the Mochi model afterwards. So afterwards, we train our model that we curated together, and we used it to basically create this nice little visual that is pinned at the top of our Twitter feed, as well as all of Mochi's marketing materials are generated basically using 0x Salamander. If you want to learn how basically we did this entire process and used all the tools that I just mentioned, please watch this video, follow us on Twitter, and then read this little document link that's kind of left here that has all the secrets to basically how this works. Last thing I'll show you guys after this is this kind of crazy thing. So this is Comfy UI, and this is one of the best ways that you can learn to use and generate images using kind of image models with Stable Diffusion. I already have the model that we trained collectively inside here. So you can see 0x Salamander plus the LoRa that we trained is here. And then this was a fun image of the 500 hats by Dr. Seuss that was shared by our friends over at Coordinate yesterday in the hats chat. So I'm going to use that image basically kind of show you how we use 0x Salamander to generate images for our marketing materials. And hopefully we'll get something fun that pops out of here that we can share with the hats community at the end of this. This will be the last thing I show. I think it's generating 4 images, so it's taking a second, but hopefully there will be no demo breaks while we're live. Here's the progress bar. I'll explain what this what's happening here at a different time. There's not enough time in 5 minutes, but 2 more seconds and it'll be done. I should have done just one image. Oh well, here we go. Boom. There we go. So as you can see here, now it's taken that image that we loaded up of 500 hats and it's applied our model and it's made it a little bit cuter and a little bit more kawaii because that's how we keep it here at Mochi. So as you can see, it's kind of a big honkin' system to generate a community model that we then use to create visions of an on-chain future that we're moving towards. And if you're interested in the next version of the autonomous world machine, we'll be testing the V2 at the conclusion of the We Love the Art contest on Optimism. That ends on January 8th. So if you're interested, please stay tuned on how to participate and join the next journey in the coming weeks. Other than that, thanks for your time. Appreciate you guys having me here.
Incredible stuff. Gabriel, thank you so much for sharing. Maybe just briefly share where you see the autonomous world machine going from here, and if you see any other ways that Hats fits in, but curious what the vision is here long term.
Yeah, definitely. Long-term vision, again, is to kind of spawn a community intelligence that's owned and stewarded and governed by a community of people, maybe like ourselves. The idea at the end of what's kind of going on with the We Love the Art contest is there's going to be a bunch of new artists that are going to be onboarded onto the Optimism superchain. And we want to keep them going and creating and making and spawning visions of what an on-chain future might look like in the next 25 years. So we'll gather them into a system that kind of looks like this and then kind of incentivize them to kind of create and manifest and visualize what that might look like. And use the information and data that's gathered as a result of doing that journey to then train a more refined and higher fidelity version of a model that we can all steward into the future, and then hopefully bring forth what I'm calling the time being. And I'll explain, or I'll show you more what that looks like at the end of that contest. But I can't share everything right now.
Sweet. All right. Thanks so much.
Super.
We are going to transition to the next one. Give Mochi some love in the chat, y'all, because that was sick. I'm looking forward to see how that evolves.
Yep.
Next up, we got Grant Ships, which is an evolutionary grants game built with hats designed to optimize capital deployment within the Arbitrum ecosystem. We have Matt, aka UI369, here on the stream. Matt, just for bandwidth purposes, can you turn off your video, please?
Oh, hey. Yeah. Can
Perfect.
you hear me all right?
And I'm going to stop screen. Yep, sound great. I'm going to stop my screen share and pass it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, let me get my screen share started. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name's Matt, aka UI369. I'm with the DAO Masons. I asked Dolly to generate an image of what DAO Masons look like while we're at work. Obviously, this is very, very accurate. We are a design and development team. We create bespoke Web3 solutions inspired by game design. Our mission is to help DAOs win. You can check us out at DAOmasons.com. Here today to talk about our latest project, Grant Ships, and how it's leveraging hats to provide a system for decentralized grants administration. We were recently funded by Plurality Labs in the Arbitrum ecosystem to build Grant Ships. Grant Ships is what we call a pluralistic competitive grants game framework. So what does that mean? Usually within a given ecosystem, there's one grants program distributing funds from a central funding pool. They may have a centralized grants council making funding decisions by consensus. They might have community quadratic voting mechanisms that make decisions in a more decentralized way. And of course, many permutations within that. It tends vary in many regards. They all have their pros and cons. So what's the best way? Grant Ships, as I said, is a competitive grants game framework. So we actually take multiple grant giving teams, onboard them to Grant Ships, and let them launch their own funding programs. Grant Ships itself is actually silent about what makes a good grants program. We just require that each ship operates transparently and in good faith. We allot them funds to distribute We document their funding decisions and the results of their funded projects and teams through on-chain attestations. And then we allow the voters, in this case Arbitrum token voters, to periodically rank and assess each grant ship's performance relative to the others at the end of each funding round. Ships that perform well in this regard are given more funding for the following round. Ships that perform less well are given less. In this way, grant ships is what we call an evolutionary grants framework. We hope that competing teams learn from each other. Teams that can't improve will eventually be jettisoned from their ships and replaced by new teams and new programs. The idea being that over time, grant giving patterns that are effective will be rewarded and therefore flourish and propagate, and those that are not will die out. So we think that effective grant giving is a skill, or on an organizational level, we might say a competency. The more effectively the skill or competency is cultivated in our communities, the more well-directed funding outcomes we'll see. So as an analogy, the NBA is a basketball league, doesn't specifically say what makes a great basketball team. Instead, it provides opportunity and structure within which teams can compete to prove their greatness. In the end, we learn who's great by how they perform. So how do we do that? Grantships handles it by first creating an even playing field. We provide transparency into the process and the results of grant giving. And then we ask the community, in this case it's the Arbitrum community, but this could work anywhere, to be the arbiter of what was good grant giving and what wasn't. We use a custom TCR token voting mechanism to rank the grants programs relative to each other. We use HATS protocol to create revocable, transferable roles and permissions within the game. The primary roles are the grant ships, the facilitators, aka the referees, and the grant recipients, with the top hat being on the Arbitrum governor contract. So our code provides the standard methods for these hats to move between participants as appropriate according to the game rules, but the Arbitrum voters will have the power to move them as they see fit if needed. We divide the permissions and responsibilities that a grants program would normally have within one body, and such as making funding requests, finalizing fund distributions, reporting the results, administrative tasks, things like this, across these three roles. And by distributing those permissions and responsibilities, we have a structure within which people can do what they're really good at. So our plans for the future, this is a game, we take a lot from board game design inspiration. Our plans for the future is we're finalizing the rule book. We're building a dashboard for the game, so you can go see how things are going at a glance. We're writing the backing contracts, and we're running a beta round in February. So we have 90,000 ARB earmarked. That's around $100,000 right now for grant ships to give away. We're planning to have 3 grant ships, a team of referees, facilitators, and many grant recipients operating over 3 funding rounds. So we need teams that want to try their hand at grant giving. We need grant recipients, of course. We're always looking for people interested in the project who want to talk about what makes a good grants program, how we might build this thing. You can go to daomasons.com, DAO Masons, join our Discord if you like, get devlog updates. We've got rules.grantships.fun on the screen there. But yeah, that's Grantships. Happy to answer any question.
Amazing, thank you. And we got Jordan here too, in case you want to expand on any of these. But I'd love to hear how you see Grantships evolving, kind of what are immediate next steps for you, and then how would you like to see this unfolding over time?
Yeah, so we're in milestones. We're in milestone 1, where we're basically just laying out the rule book and getting things going. We're going to be going pretty heavily into our build for 2 months, where there's a lot of technical decisions to make. We were looking at Allo protocol for distributions, hats obviously for permissions gathering. Besides building the thing, a big part of it is community and attention. We need people manning the ships. So in February we have that funding round going on. So we want people who are interested in grant giving to kind of be in here. Like looking at it and talking about it, because you kind of have an opportunity to run a grants program, see how you do, try your hand at grant giving. So the more people we can get involved, the better.
Like it, Jordan, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, this is basically like what's happening on February is basically just getting into the testing beta round. But we plan to, like, over time, as this game evolves, be able to tweak and change the settings, have it adapt to user behavior, so that over time it can handle larger and larger amounts, basically. And then, we have a bit of a roadmap as well on how we would like to sort of decentralize the facilitators over time. A lot of that might include, like maybe in the short term, using elections, like the hats joke race elections. But over time, maybe even providing some sort of like passive mechanism where people can essentially optimistically allow grants to go through, but having separate rules for people who watch the allocations before they're sent over a given time period, and might be able to stop it if they're malicious.
Got a question from the chat, which is, how do you see hats unlocking more creative opportunities for playful mechanisms?
I can take that one if I think so. What hats allows us to do is sort of like delineate or separate, each actor in the game. And so when we're looking at creative, like one of the big points of grantship is to allow pluralistic grants framework. So essentially each ship here can have their own style, their own ways of operating. And we're not prescriptively telling people how to do it. We're just saying that, like, it must be done, or, you must perform well in order to survive, basically. So it allows people to, like, decide and bring their own style to how they want to do this.
One thing I want to add is, my theory is that board game design is kind of the sleeper skill set that's of the 21st century. Web3 developers are all kind of board game designers. So having a clear rule set and rails that you can operate within, and in board games you can have roles and positions that you take on to make the game work. And so hats kind of lets us enforce that on chain at creating players and administrators and different positions within a game.
I love it. Really excited to see this live in practice, something that people can actually participate in soon. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining. You can sign off now, or we're going to roll on to the next one.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks for having us.
All right. Rolling on here. Next, we have CharacterSheets by RaidGuild. CharacterSheets is an RPG dedicated to chronicling guild member journeys, which is leveraging hats to provision game permissions and roles. I think you're all going to love this. We got Scotchpreneur to do an intro. We got EC Wireless in the stream to share the demo. Also, quick shout out to Toki Monster, which is this song. We're launching SonaStream, in large part. A lot of work from one of the OG Hats contributors, Topo Count, on that one. So I'm going to stop my screen share and pass it over to you, Scott, to give the intro.
Thanks, David. Yeah, stoked to be here. Scotchpreneur, everybody, client dev. Excited after seeing the issues Nick mentioned early on at RaidGuild. It's great to finally see all of these empowered roles proliferating throughout the ecosystem. I'm excited to introduce EC Wireless to share CharacterSheets, which is kind of how we're evolving RaidGuild's RPG and taking it to the next level. Take it away, EC.
All right, so hopefully the screen is showing right now. And
yep.
Okay. Cool. So so just want to say this CharacterSheets is primarily built by Mr. Deadcell, Dan One Tree, myself, and Benison over at RaidGuild. It's built primarily for RaidGuild right now, but hopefully other people can use it at some point. Anyone can create a game at any point, but right now it's primarily for RaidGuild. And for those who don't know what RaidGuild is, it's self-described as a decentralized collective of mercenaries ready to slay your Web3 product demons. But you could also describe it as a professional service DAO that's basically LARPing as a form of work. So instead of there's like front-end engineers and smart contract engineers, but at RaidGuild, we call them warriors and wizards. And you could describe character sheets as basically a way to extend this right now socially tracked form of LARPing to a more on-chain form of it by basically tracking what you do in the guild by raids you complete, meetings you attend, in an activity log. And based on that activity log can generate a representation of kind of who you are in the guild as a character, as you can see here. So this is my character. These are my, and the character is a 6551 token bound account. And all of the roles that would normally be just social, such as warrior, wizard, and whatnot, are actually NFTs that your character owns. And through those NFTs, you can get items that you can equip and more stuff like that. So how are we using hats in this? So hats is actually the entire permission structure of the game. So every time you create a game, it's actually creating a whole hat tree. So this is the RaidGuild game hat tree. So there's the top hat, admin hat, and game master hat. And basically these are the people that control all of the game design, all the metadata of the game, and just how the game operates. And of course, we also have player hats and character hats that determine what those roles are able to do within the game as well. The second way we're using hats is by connecting it with RaidGuild's separate hats tree. So this is RaidGuild's much larger separate hats tree, and this handles all the controls for normal like operational stuff in the guild. So we've got, as an example, these builder hats here. Scrolling. These builder hats here. And within them, they have the roles that was mentioned earlier, like wizards and monks and wizards, warriors, wizards, and monks. And within that, we have what we're calling an elder hat. And an elder hat is something that represents kind of the highest status of expertise for that class. So if you're an elder warrior, you're an extremely qualified front-end developer. And claiming this hat through character sheets is what I'm going to be showing right now. So this is one of my characters. And this character, as you can see here, has a warrior class. So this is a front-end engineer and has earned enough XP through completing different front-end engineering raids to level up to level 2. And just for the sake of this demo, level 2 is what's used, level 2 of the warrior class is what's used to qualify in the eligibility module for that elder hat. So you can see in the dashboard, I now, because it detects that I have level 2 for this class, and that I have not claimed my elder hat yet, I could go ahead and claim it. So I'll go ahead and claim that. And as that's going, I'll go ahead and show, of course, that I'm not using this player address, not wearing the warrior elder hat yet. And once this transaction goes through, what you'll see is my status will change on the front end to show that I have this elder status. So it can act as a really easy way for people to go to the dashboard and just see who is the expert of a certain class in RaidGuild. It's just a nice, easy way to visually delineate who is who. And it also can, of course, help with gating certain things throughout the guild operationally. So you can use the standard warrior hat to gate, say, just being able to contribute to a repo in our GitHub. But if you have the elder warrior hat, then you can actually have more admin level privileges. And same with, like, if you're a scribe, you would have editing access to the Charmverse, but if you're an elder scribe, you would have admin access to the Charmverse. And you can see, of course, now I have that elder status that gives me access to all that stuff. And if I go to the RaidGuild tree again and reload, then you'll see that this address, which is the player of that character that we just saw, is now the holder of that elder hat. And that's it for the demo, but just some ideas that are kind of fun to play with that aren't implemented yet, but just for future stuff. Something that could be kind of cool with these elder hats is using them to kind of decide how the game is played. So you could have all the elders come together in a committee and actually determine the rules of how a character is supposed to progress throughout the game. So when, why, and how they receive XP, when, why, and how they level up, because the people that are the experts in that area are best qualified to determine how easy it should be for someone to progress. with, of course, probably a third party, so that it's not like a whole caste system or anything like that. Another interesting idea is exactly how the elders can decide on these rules. Well, you can actually plug and play different rules or automated actions or non-playable characters, as we've called them sometimes, with hats being used to install them. So basically, you just have this almost middleware logic contract that can do a certain thing for the game that you give a hat to install. For instance, right now we have a tipping bot in Discord that is able to tip XP to everyone that attends a meeting in Discord. And that's literally just a logic contract that is given a game master hat. And what would be really cool in the future is you can basically allow anyone to build any kind of game by just basically having this open suite of different NPC contracts that you can plug and play and figure out what exact game logic you want to use in your game. And anyone could build those contracts, registered in like some sort of store or something. And then anyone making a game could decide to install it literally just by giving a hat. And I'm sure I'm near time, so I'll stop there.
Awesome stuff. I got a couple questions. One technical question and one bigger vision question. Technical question is, can you have a smart escrow bound to a particular hat?
A smart escrow bound to a particular hat? Well, with the tipping bot right now, it is just a Gnosis safe. So, I mean, you can have it bound to any particular thing that you want to, but yeah, the Gnosis safe is basically just the bot that's deciding whether or not someone gets XP, and it's given permission to give the XP just by being given the game master hat. So same would be true if you wanted an escrow as well. You would just plug it in, or you just set up the logic for the escrow and give it the hat, and it would act as a game master.
Perfect. And then we got a bigger picture question from the chat here, which is, how do the stories we tell about roles change the way we fill them? And is that part of what you're trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, that's kind of the exciting thing about having a suite of non-playable characters that anyone can grab. I mean, we built this in a way that we think is that we play at RaidGuild, but really, like, if you don't like the way that we're doing our leveling system, if you don't like the way that we're doing how XP is distributed, even if you don't want these exact character styles that we have here or classes, you can decide any and all of that you want. For instance, if you want a whole set of classes to be almost like a bundle that anyone can install, say like you want your classes to be Pokemon, you could write a NPC contract that basically, when you install that, it automatically creates those classes for you. So hopefully, I mean, it gives a decent opportunity for just a nice wide space for anyone to contribute different components of how to build a game, and then anyone making a game could just pick from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll let you go there. Appreciate you sharing this demo, and people are keen to check it out in the chat. We're going to keep it rolling. Thank you. All right, everybody, as we roll forward here, first thing is you can claim POAP from today in the lower right-hand corner here. And we also have a joke race, which is live right now. We'll be live for the next 50 minutes or so, where you can vote on the demo of the day. You can go to bit.ly/hatsdemorace or the blue QR code, and the winner will get a bag of bonus hats proto rep, which are hats reputation points, as well as an IRL special edition hats hat. That'll be open for 30 minutes following the conclusion of the demo day. So go to that link and you can be voting as we do our last overview, which is bringing back Spencer Graham onto the stage to do a deep dive into the hats modules stack and how all these pieces fit together. Spencer, here you go.
Appreciate it. All right, so we've been seeing some incredible tools and like other applications and just organizational structures that this incredible community has been building on top of HATS protocol and on top of the HATS protocol stack. So we wanted to take a little bit of time to share a little bit more in detail about what that stack is and how you, if you're interested in building or using it, can do so. So one thing I want to say is, so this is like a current way to think about or depict what the HATS protocol stack is. But this image, like the stack itself, is constantly evolving and growing. So next time we do this image will probably look very different. But let's take a quick tour through the stack itself. And I want to focus your attention on the distinction between kind of the left side, which takes up like 2/3 of it, and the right side. So on the left side is the basest base layer. And we have, at the contract layer, we have the protocol itself. So the HATS protocol is a singleton architecture. It is a multi-tenant contract, one contract per chain, that all HATS on that chain are created from, live in, managed, viewed in, etc. And we're taking advantage of the full width of, or like full space, ID space of the UN 256 value. So we have all of the 1155 token IDs that are that manifest as HATS inside of the same contract. So everything that you do, all that only needs to point to the one contract. On top of that, we have our indexed data layer. So we have a subgraph that helps to index all of the data that is generated by the protocol itself. So this is a great way to access or read from the data generated by the protocol. But if you don't want to do that directly, we also have an SDK that can help you, if you're an application developer, incorporate that data into your application, and also to be able to interact with the protocol itself. So writing to the protocol, not just reading from it. And the SDK has a bunch of utilities that are sort of HATS-specific ways of thinking about what tokens are and how to interact with them and how to navigate between HATS and within HATS trees, etc. And then on top of that, we have a number of data standards. And so these are constantly, these are pretty young. They're not yet fully mature. And we expect this to kind of grow quite a bit over the months and years. But there are different ways to organize or structure the sort of metadata about a HAT into different schema. And there's also an emergent way to represent a HATS tree in an intermediate representation as a JSON object. And that JSON object is particularly interesting because it can be an intermediate representation between, again, an AI, an LLM, and the on-chain representation. So if you think back to what Sobol was producing and the amazing work that they're doing there, think about that as like a key element to that. And then on top of that, we have apps. So there's the HATS app or client that our team has been building. There's the Sobol HATS composer that you saw today. There's the CharacterSheets app that we also saw today, and also the cabin.city app that uses HATS behind the scenes to show the roles for all the citizens of the cabin network. So that's kind of one side of this, but maybe even more interesting is the right side. And this is the most modular side of our entire stack. And this is maybe well named the HATS modules stack. If you're not familiar with HATS modules, they are the kind of modular components that allow a user of HATS protocol or a builder of HATS protocol with HATS protocol to define, and I think I see a little bit of talk about this in the chat, to define different logic or criteria or conditions that influence or kind of manage the behavior of, or customize the behavior of a HAT or multiple HATs. So there's an eligibility module, which kind of encapsulates logic about that determines who and when given people are eligible to wear a certain HAT. So this is if you get the hat in the first place, but also if you already have the hat, when it might be revoked from you. So this is a really nice way to customize and automate the eligibility and revocation behavior. We also have toggle modules, which automate the conditions and criteria for when a given role or hat is active or not, is on or off, is created or is no longer active. And both of those, especially together, are really powerful ways for extending the possibilities of what HATS protocol can do and customizing it for your own organization or for your own application. And we've worked really hard to make this an open ecosystem, but also at the same time, make it as easy as possible for users to tap into the wealth of modules that have been already built by developers, and also for developers to give fast and easy kind of distribution of the modules that they've built. And so the primary way that we're doing this is with what we're calling the HATS module registry. So this is basically a list. It's a GitHub repo right now, where there are different modules that have been submitted to be on this registry. And a submission to the registry includes a bunch of metadata that applications via the HATS modules SDK can refer to or use to automatically generate user interfaces that allow users, without having to write any code, to configure and deploy a module or multiple modules from the set of modules that have been approved to the registry. So we're really proud about this and excited about what this can do. But we're also in really early days. Right now, that registry is curated and managed by the HATS protoDAO. Over time, we hope to expand that and decentralize this process and mechanism. And maybe this even one day moves fully on chain, and we can participate in the re-glorification of TCRs across the world. And so there's lots of exciting stuff that you can both do today and will be evolving over the future within the HATS stack.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. We are going to start to wrap up, folks. What a day. Awesome demos. Let's throw that Joke Race QR code back up here. I have learned that the bit.ly isn't working, but the QR code is, and also in the HypeShot chat. And on Twitter, we posted the Joke Race link directly. That voting will close in 43 minutes. So vote for the demo of the day. You can also get the POAP for today to prove that you were here. As we start to close, I just want to do a final hat tip to everyone who played a role in making this possible. I'll come back on. So thank you to Diana Chen, Hat Steward, and today's event producer. Thank you to Brennan Mulligan, another Hat Steward, and today's co-organizer and question curator, and many other things. To all the presenters from MakerDAO and ATX DAO, Premia, PublicHAUS, Sobol, Mochi, Grant Ships, and RaidGuild, to the team at Haberdasher Labs, to everyone who is a HAT supporter or wearer or builder or contributor, please get involved. community.hatsprotocol.xyz. You can join the community and jump in the HATS community Telegram, start contributing, getting proto rep. Steward applications are open now for season 2 through January 4th. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining and participating, whether it's live or on the recording. We'll be following up this demo day with the recording, with clips, and also in the coming months with case studies from these different demos and these different use cases. So keep your eyes out for those dropping in January. There's lots more ahead. We're just getting started here. So for HATS community members, join the next HATS Town Hall, which is next Thursday. We'll do a retrospective of season 1 and demos of the many awesome contributions that people have made over the course of this first protoDAO season. And to everyone else, thank you. Have a great finish to your year. See you in 2024.